Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Today's question comes to us straight out of the Judge Vault. I was honestly really sure that I've already covered this one before, but I couldn't find it, so here we are. Amy controls Doubling Season, and she plays a Gideon, Champion of Justice. Then she uses its +1 ability. Given that Nick has 2 creatures, how many loyalty counters does Gideon have on it after this resolves? Okay, so let's start out by noticing that Doubling Season only doubles counters put onto Gideon by effect. An effect is defined as something that happens in the game as a result of a spell or ability. Planeswalkers have an inherent ability that says they enter the battlefield with a given number of loyalty counters on them. Because an effect is putting 4 counters onto Gideon, that will get doubled into 8. In the same way, when Gideon's loyalty ability resolves, then the effects of that ability will be to put 2 loyalty counters onto Gideon. Again, Doubling Season will see that and double those to 4 counters. On the other hand, putting a loyalty counter onto Gideon to activate a loyalty ability is not an effect. It's a cost to activate the ability, not something that happens as a result of a spell or ability. Since this is not an effect, Doubling Season will not double it. For the same reason, if you were playing a Scarscale ritual, Doubling Season would not make you put 2 -1/-1 counters on your creature. Another situation where it looks like Doubling Season should work, but it turns out that it doesn't, would be with sagas. The initial counter that you get from it entering the battlefield is indeed an effect, so that one gets doubled. But the one you get at the start of your main phase, that comes from a turn-based action, which does not qualify. I talked about that in a bit more depth in a video that I made a while ago, so I encourage you to check that out if you'd like a more detailed explanation. Be sure to read the cards carefully because small changes in wording can affect the answer. For example, let's observe that Vorinclex does not care about why you're putting counters on a permanent, only which player is doing it. As you can see from carefully reading the cards or by the associated rules, in each of the cases that we've talked about so far, the controller of the permanent that's getting the counters is indeed the one who's putting the counter on it. So a Vorinclex actually will double the counters for all of these cases, or have them if it's on the other side of the field. Now that's pretty cool, but do you want to know something really interesting? Let's say that we're going to do the same situation from the original problem statement, except this time we have both a Doubling Season and a Vorinclex in play. In the case of the counters getting put on Gideon as it enters the battlefield and as the +1 ability resolves, I don't think it should be too controversial to say that since both doubling effects apply to those, the counters would get quadrupled, and 4 times the normal number of counters would be put on Gideon in each of those instances. But here's the cool part. We already talked about how Vorinclex would apply to the 1 counter being put on Gideon to activate its ability and make that into 2 counters. Well, guess what? If a replacement effect modifies an event to put counters on something, that counts as an effect putting counters on that permanent, even if the thing that the replacement effect is modifying wasn't originally an effect itself. With this rule, the Doubling Season will apply after the Vorinclex doubles the counters, meaning that this one will also get quadrupled as well. If you think that's a little bit confusing and you're wondering why this rule exists, I made a whole video a while back where I talked about the historical context and the type of situations this rule was intended to fix. But the short version is that effects and replacement effects happen to both use the same English word in their names, despite being largely unrelated game concepts. This led to a lot of confusion with this sort of interaction, and rather than, for example, renaming one of them to differentiate these concepts a little bit more, which is what they did for mana value, the rules team put this rule in so that the interaction would work the way that you would expect it to based on the natural English meaning of the card text. But that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again next time for another daily ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.